When was the time you legitimately thought you were going to die?
This happened about 4 or 5 months ago. I was home alone eating steak tip kebabs for dinner. My wife was at work and due home in about an hour. I choked on the pieces of steak chewed throughly, people. At first, I thought I just needed to swallow harder. Bad idea, as now it was firmly lodged in my throat. I tried coughing it up, punching myself in the stomach, and pulling it out with my hand, none of which helped. I then ran over to the kitchen and tried to wash it down with some water. The water just sat in a pool in my mouth. My throat was completely blocked. At this point, I'm contemplating calling 911, but I knew I'd be long dead before they arrived. The thought of my wife, we just celebrated our first anniversary and recently decided to start trying to conceive, coming home to find my dead body was by far the scariest part. I remember looking at my cats and they just stared at me, confused at my odd behavior. Eventually, I reached what felt like my whole hand down my throat and pulled a chunk of the obstruction out. This loosened it enough to let me cough out the remainder. I was so close to passing out, vomit everywhere. Total time in my throat around 90 seconds. I couldn't talk for a day due to the physical trauma on my throat. Drove myself to the hospital, cried in front of my wife when I saw her, and the next few days were surreal. It was like I was living in an alternate timeline. I don't find choking gags in movies amusing anymore. Still have mild PTSD about it. A couple of friends and I were driving home from a birthday party and we got rear ended by a drunk driver who was going about 120. On impact, all of the windows exploded and the tires caved inwards. And we were going about 70, so there was sort of a slingshot effect that made us pick up speed. We were just careening down the freeway with zero control. The car swerved around a bunch, almost hits another car and a pole, and eventually rolled into an area just right of the shoulder. Luckily, it ended up back upright on the tires and somehow ended up facing the complete opposite direction we were initially going. We thought our friend in the back seat was dead. She was just unconscious. Ended up having some pretty bad whiplash. My other friend and I basically were unharmed, except for some cuts and bruises and just overall body ache for a little bit. This was in 2007. I still think about it pretty frequently. We all probably should have died for sure. One time I woke up in the middle of the night with a stomach ache, so I went to the bathroom and shat wildly for a while. Then I went into a cold sweat and my hearing and vision started to blur and muffle. I called for my mom, but I couldn't quite hear myself. Then everything went black and I couldn't really hear anything, but I was still awake, so that wasn't cool. And my mom, she heard me as I did successfully yell for her, gave me a bowl, and I threw up completely clear liquid that had the appearance and viscosity of corn syrup. This all happened over the course of 30 minutes, and I woke up fine in the morning. When it was happening, I thought I was going to die, and afterwards I assumed it was food poisoning or something. Apparently, most of what I described is not consistent with food poisoning, though. Cheers. Back in July, I was riding my motorcycle and was turning into my driveway. A girl came from behind me around a sharp turn and T-boned me. She was going at least 60 miles per hour, up until a couple of seconds before impact when she hit her brakes. She hit me because she was either texting or digging around with something in the car. Either way, she wasn't paying attention. I remember hearing the tires screeching and seeing the car half a second before impact. Then everything went black. I broke the windshield with my head, broke the mirror with my hip, then landed face first on the road. I do remember being scared because I wasn't sure if there was more cars, so adrenaline kicked in and I caught myself with my hands and knees and pushed myself to my feet and ran off the road. So there I regained my vision. The bike was totaled, but thanks to my helmet and pure rage of being hit, I managed to literally walk away with only a concussion, nasty bruises, and a deep bone bruise on my left foot. No broken bones at all. It's been 8 months and I'm still recovering from the concussion. My toe barely hurts, and the leg that took the impact has a dent in the muscle, but other than that, I'm fine. If I wouldn't have been wearing a helmet, then I have no doubt that I'd be dead now. Wear your damn helmets, kids. Edit. The last wear should be wear. It's weird I misspelled that. It's like I got a concussion recently. Once, when I was about 5 or 6, my family was at an amusement park. I went on a roller coaster with my mom since I was way too small to go on a ride alone, but I was barely tall enough to ride the ride at all. This was one of those older coasters made of mostly wood, and the security was not great. Well, on this roller coaster ride, there were corkscrews. During the first loop around, I started to slide out of my seat. The safety strap was not properly fastened, and I was very small, so we continued to loop, and I slid further and further out of my seat. I assumed at first my mom thought I was yelling from the thrill until she looked over and barely caught me before I flew off the ride. She had to hold on to me for a while the ride continued for another minute or so before stopping. I was sobbing. My mom was borderline manic, and since we were on the frontmost seat, everyone behind us immediately got out and rushed forward to make sure we were okay. That's the oldest memory I have, and it was not a great one. I think the whole family, 7 of us, got season passes after that because we went suspiciously often after that. I've posted this before, but it's still pretty scary. I rode a really twisty roller coaster with my wife, and the seatbelt didn't lock or let loose. I get on the coaster and sit with my wife. We hit the first set of hills, and my upper torso goes flailing around like a tube that the air blows into at a Q's car lot. My wife is yelling and mad at me, thinking I am doing this to be funny, but realizes that something went wrong. I hooked my boots under the seat in front of me. We were both sweaty because it's hot. I am trying to hook one of my arms on the lap bar. Thank God my wife has strong hands. She has played softball since she was 8 and played in college. She is freaking out trying to hold me with the right arm. She pulled my watch off my wrist, gripping my arm and hand. I am worried that I'm going to get brained on one of these tunnels. Things slowed down. I had a bunch of images flash in my head. Shit, this is how I'm going to die. My wife grasping my sweaty arm, yelling my name, and I think she's yelling no over and over. At least I had a good run. I got married. I have 2 great kids. They'll be rich from the settlement of my death from being decapitated in one of their tunnels. We hit the end, and I finally get to tell her that there was a malfunction, and it wasn't me being the fun guy. I realize my watch is gone, and she's pretty shaken from the whole thing. We get the watch and get out. She decided that no more coasters for the rest of the day for me. Just last night, my rubber floor mat in my truck slipped on the gas pedal. There was a line of cars ahead of me at the stoplight, so I pressed the brake to slow down, which caused me to put pressure on the mat, which caused my truck to suddenly speed up. I slammed harder on the brakes and fumbled for the shift to switch to neutral. Then, 2 seconds after my truck altered, the mat slipped, allowing my gas to pedal to snap back into place. I only knew it was the mat because I tried to pry out the gas pedal off the floor, but I couldn't because my toe was being blocked by the mat. Thankfully, I stopped long enough before I plowed into the cars ahead of me. But I was seriously thinking about crashing into the traffic light pole. At least then, nobody but myself would get hurt. And I was leaving the restaurant after hanging out with some buddies of mine, one of whom was following right behind me. If I crashed, he would see it and probably be the first to respond. That whole incident ended up giving me a massive anxiety attack that lasted for 5 hours. I cried the rest of the ride home and hung out in the slow lane like an old lady. Once I got home, I cried in my mom's arms like I used to do when I was a little girl. She told me that it happened to her once, and as long as one doesn't pump the brakes but just holds them down, chances are you'll still be okay. Still, nothing is scarier than nearing 60 miles per hour in a Nissan Xterra, unsure if the brakes will stop your car or if your gas pedal will ever get unstuck, headed straight at a line of stopped cars a blockway. Fun stuff. Fun. Scary stuff. And I'm glad that she didn't hit anybody. And I think that it's pretty sweet of her to actually be like, I'd rather crash into the post only I get hurt. That was so thoughtful. That's something I would do afterwards, just cry, break down and cry. And this was all like crazy stuff. And there's like actually hella stories. So if y'all want me to do a part 2 of these, I would absolutely love to. I'm over here sweating reading these from nervousness because it was like so intense. But I get it. Now I see why some of these people actually thought it was gonna be the end of them. But thank y'all if y'all made it to the end. I really appreciate it. Please let me know in the comments if y'all have any near death experiences or at least thought you were going to die at that moment. I would like to hear them. All right. And y'all have a good rest of y'all day and God bless.